Welcome back to this channel. If this is your first time here, this is the place where we don't just follow the news. We analyze it. We break it down. We look at the bigger picture. And today, that bigger picture is enormous. It is shocking. And honestly, it is something to be incredibly proud of. In this video, we are going to unpack the facts that have forced the global luxury fashion industry to sit up straight and pay attention to two names you already know very well. We are talking numbers, data, and how Jimin and Jungkook are not just ordinary brand faces, they are a genuine economic force. But before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. Because content like this, where we dig into real data and not just gossip, is exactly what we keep delivering for you here. Already subscribed? Perfect! Let's get into it. Let's start with a question that sounds simple, but has an answer that is anything but. Why are global luxury brands so desperately determined to have Jimin and Jungkook? Is it because they're handsome? Of course. But the world is not short of handsome people. Is it because they're famous? Absolutely. But the world is not short of famous people either. So what makes these two men from South Korea different from everyone else waiting in that very long line? The answer lies in three letters you need to know. M-I-V, Media Impact Value. At Paris Fashion Week Autumn/Winter 2025, Jimin attended the Dior Spring/Summer 2026 show. One appearance, one post, and the result? $33.8 million in media impact value, making it the highest MIV achievement for a Korean idol across the entire Fashion Week season, surpassing the top 10 brands at Paris Fashion Week overall. Let that number sink in for a moment. $33 million from one appearance, without 100 Instagram posts, without hours of press conferences. Just Jimin, seated in the front row, wearing Dior, and the entire world immediately started talking about it. On the other side of the ocean, at New York Fashion Week a few weeks earlier, Jungkook appeared representing Calvin Klein. The results were no less staggering. $7.44 million in EMV, earned media value, from just one appearance. That figure represented 30% of Calvin Klein's total EMV at NYFW and 25% of all media value across every single event at New York Fashion Week that season. His position, number 1. The most impactful influencer at the entire NYFW. And here's what is most shocking of all. Jungkook did not post a single piece of content on his personal social media. 0 posts. But posts from other people about him generated $20 to $22 million in MIV according to launch metrics. 0 posts. Tens of millions of dollars in media value. If that is not the definition of genuine brand power, I honestly don't know what is. Now let's step back for a moment and understand the context more deeply. Because to truly understand why Jimin and Jungkook are where they are right now, we need to understand two things: who they are as brand entities, and what is happening in the global luxury industry at this moment. First, about Jimin. Jimin's track record with luxury brands is extremely concrete and thoroughly documented. During Paris Fashion Week, a single post connected to his appearance for Dior generated over $35 million in media impact value, one of the highest returns for a single post across the entire season. And the impact did not stop at numbers. Items he wore in the Dior 2023 campaign sold out, as did accessories he photographed during his Fashion Week appearances. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern. Every single time Jimin wears something, that item vanishes from the market. In February 2026, a Dior bag he carried at Incheon Airport sold out on Dior's official website within hours after the photos spread organically on social media. Not after a major campaign. Not after a television commercial. Simply because airport photos circulated naturally across social platforms. And Dior is not the only one. LVMH, the world's largest luxury conglomerate, signed Jimin as brand ambassador for 2 prestigious labels simultaneously, Dior and Tiffany & Company. In the campaign, This Is Tiffany, Jimin stood alongside Zoe Kravitz and Gal Gadot, names that had long been the gold standard for Western luxury brand ambassadors. Think about that. Jimin standing side by side with Gal Gadot and Zoe Kravitz. At Tiffany, at LVMH. That is not just an achievement, that is a signal that the luxury world has already decided its old standards need to be expanded. Now about Jungkook. If Jimin's story is about artistic expression, and the power of emotional narrative, then Jungkook's story is about something different yet equally devastating: raw magnetism that breaks through every category boundary. Chanel, a brand famously selective and conservative in choosing its ambassadors, reportedly spent nearly a full year preparing its partnership with Jungkook. They deliberately waited until Jungkook had completed his mandatory military service. The official rollout was executed through Chanel's global channels, the level of announcement typically reserved for legendary Hollywood figures and long-term brand faces. Chanel waited a full year. 1 year. For Jungkook. And there is something that makes Jungkook's collaboration with Chanel far more powerful than a simple corporate deal. Jungkook holds one personal principle that he maintains firmly: he will only endorse products he genuinely uses himself. Chanel Blue is a fragrance he had been wearing for years before any deal existed. That is not a story manufactured by a PR team. That is a fact that predated the signing of his contract. And that is the difference. When discerning consumers see Jungkook carrying Chanel, they know it is not just for the paycheck. It is because he genuinely loves it. And the trust that is born from that kind of authenticity cannot be purchased with any marketing budget in the world. And then on February 12th, 2026, something happened that made the entire luxury watch industry turn its head. Hublot, the prestigious Swiss watchmaker, a brand long synonymous with names like Usain Bolt, Novak Djokovic, and Kylian Mbappé, officially announced Jungkook as its global brand ambassador at an exclusive event in Seoul. Hublot CEO Julien Tourneur stated that Jungkook embodies the brand's art of fusion philosophy, a perfect blend of creativity, precision, and the ability to transcend boundaries. For decades, Hublot built its identity around the world of sport, the greatest athletes on earth, legends of the field and the arena. And then they looked at Jungkook and decided he was the face that represents the future of the brand. What makes it even more compelling is that the relationship between Jungkook and Hublot actually began long before this official announcement. When Jungkook performed Dreamers at the FIFA World Cup 2022 opening ceremony, Hublot was the official timekeeper of that competition. The seeds of this partnership were planted in Qatar, in front of hundreds of millions of eyes watching that opening ceremony unfold. So when the official announcement came out in February 2026, for those who had been watching closely, this was not a surprise. This was the logical conclusion of a story that had been unfolding since 2022. Now let's talk about a different set of numbers, more local in scope, but no less significant. The Korea Brand Reputation Institute released its brand reputation data for male idols for February 2026. And the results? Unsurprising for those who have been following closely, but still breathtaking when you see them in raw numbers. Jimin sits at number 1 with a brand reputation index exceeding 5,300,000 points, up nearly 30% in just 1 month. This is the third consecutive month Jimin has held the top position. Meanwhile, Jungkook sits directly below him at number 2, with an index approaching 4,800,000 points. The gap between them is roughly 500,000 points. Narrow. Very narrow. And that is exactly what makes this competition so thrilling to follow every month. Because no one knows. Next month, when the Erarang album has already dropped and BTS has made their full comeback, those numbers could move in any direction. Even more fascinating is the sentiment figure. Over 92% of responses toward Jimin are positive. 92%. In an era of social media filled with polarization and negativity, maintaining positive sentiment at that level is a remarkable achievement. And it is also precisely why luxury brands feel completely secure placing their name alongside Jimin's. But we need to talk about the bigger context. Because all these numbers and achievements were not born in a vacuum. They were born in the middle of a global luxury industry that is at a genuine turning point. The global luxury industry is experiencing what analysts are calling a great reset. Major brands that for years relied on price increases as their primary growth strategy are now confronting the reality that consumers, especially younger generations, are growing tired. They're starting to ask, what real value am I actually getting from prices that keep going up? LVMH, the parent company of Dior and Hublot, reported revenue of 80.8 billion euros in 2025. And the Swiss watch industry showed positive growth at the end of 2025 after experiencing a 3% decline in 2024. This means the market is in a recovery phase. And during recovery, who represents a brand is critically decisive in determining how quickly consumer trust returns. This is exactly where Jimin and Jungkook come in. They're not simply attractive faces in a campaign. They're trust mechanisms. They bring along millions of people who have trusted them for years, ARMY, directly into the brand's ecosystem. An ARMY is not an ordinary fan base. They are organized. They are vocal. They possess purchasing power that has been repeatedly proven to move markets in concrete, measurable ways. When Jimin announced his partnership with haircare brand later perfume hair oil sold out across multiple markets within days of the announcement. Not weeks, days. That is a force that cannot be manufactured. That is the result of more than a decade of building genuine, deep-rooted trust. Now let's address the question that appears most frequently in the comments of content like this. Is all of this just a temporary phenomenon? Is this simply another K-pop wave that will eventually recede like all the others? The answer is short, no. And here is why. What makes Jimin and Jungkook's position in the luxury industry fundamentally different from previous phenomena is that both have made a transition that very few artists have ever successfully achieved. From pop stars who become brand faces to cultural icons who organically embody the values of the brand itself. When Vogue Korea placed Jimin across 7 different covers simultaneously for their February 2026 edition with the theme, The Sound of Now, that was not simply recognition of his popularity. That was an editorial declaration that he represents something significant in our visual culture right now. That there is something in the way Jimin presents himself, the way he moves, the way he looks into a camera, that cannot be fully explained in words, but is felt immediately the moment you see it. And Jungkook, with collaborations spanning Calvin Klein, Chanel, and now Hublot, Jungkook is no longer simply a K-pop idol. He has positioned himself as a symbol of modern luxury, creativity, and cultural influence, proving that the Golden Magne is a genuine global icon in both music and fashion. And now there is one final factor we haven't yet added into this equation. One factor that is going to shift every number we've discussed today to a level far higher than anything we've seen before. BTS is coming back. The Arirang album has been confirmed. BTS's comeback as a complete group is arriving in 2026, perfectly timed with the global euphoria that has been building since all 7 members completed their mandatory military service. Hublot's partnership with Jungkook is itself reported to have been deliberately synchronized with the momentum of BTS's comeback and their 2026 world tour. This means every brand that has already invested in Jimin and Jungkook, Dior, Tiffany, Hublot, Calvin Klein, Chanel, every single one of them is about to feel the effect of the biggest moment in modern K-pop history, BTS returning in full force after more than 2 years apart. The luxury brand executives who signed those contracts are now probably sitting in their chairs with very wide smiles. Because the bet they placed, that Jimin and Jungkook were long-term investments whose value would keep climbing, is now being proven right in front of the entire world. And to anyone who still doubts whether these 2 men from South Korea truly deserve to stand alongside names that have dominated the global luxury world for decades, the data has already answered that. Very clearly, very loudly. So, to bring together everything we've covered today, Jimin has entered the top 10 most sought-after faces in global luxury brands, backed by MIV figures of $33.8 million from a single Paris Fashion Week appearance, an exclusive ambassador contract for both Dior and Tiffany and Company under LVMH, and the #1 brand reputation ranking among male idols in Korea for 3 consecutive months. Jungkook has entered that same top 10 supported by $20 to $22 million in MIV from Calvin Klein at NYFW without posting a single thing on social media, a newly confirmed global ambassador status with Hublot as of February 2026, and ongoing long-term partnerships with Chanel Beauty and Calvin Klein that continue to grow. 2 names, tens of millions of dollars in media value, hundreds of millions of eyes watching, and a global luxury industry that, whether it wants to admit it or not, must acknowledge that a significant part of its future is walking in the footsteps of these 2 men. The luxury world has always been about finding the most powerful symbol of human aspiration in its time. And in 2026, with all the context and data laid out before us, it is very hard to argue that there are 2 symbols more powerful, more alive, and more real than Jimin and Jungkook. that was everything we covered today. If this content was valuable to you and opened your eyes to just how massive the influence of these two names is at the global level, please hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear the story. And if you have questions, or there's other data about Jimin and Jungkook that you would like us to dig into more deeply, write it down in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because next week we are going to break down something just as fascinating as this. See you in the next video.